Welcome to this journey through ancient wisdom, where we uncover the mysteries hidden within the Book of Jubilees. This ancient text, often referred to as Little Genesis, offers profound insights that expand on stories from the Bible, revealing details about creation, the lives of the patriarchs, and even the divine laws established by God. Preserved in the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, the Book of Jubilees claims to fill the gaps in our understanding of God's divine order, inviting us to look beyond traditional texts. Imagine a version of biblical history that is more than what we know. This book suggests there are missing pieces in the creation story, in the journey of the patriarchs, and even in the commandments handed down from God. But why is this ancient scripture largely unknown? Most of the Christian world has excluded the Book of Jubilees, possibly because it contains teachings and concepts that challenge mainstream interpretations of the Bible. In this series, we will explore the Book of Jubilees and the many secrets it holds. This text contains 50 chapters, brimming with insights on creation, divine time, angelic roles, and commandments. Each chapter introduces layers of cosmic order and divine intention that go beyond what is commonly taught. Through the lens of the Book of Jubilees, we'll examine how God structured time and laid down sacred laws that, according to this text, humanity is meant to follow. Before diving in, don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth explorations of ancient scriptures. By subscribing, you join a community dedicated to exploring the hidden truths within God's Word. Let us know in the comments if you're interested in these deep dives, and share this video with others who may be curious about the untold stories in the Bible. In the coming chapters, we will explore how the Book of Jubilees describes creation itself as part of a divine timeline. It introduces the concept of a sacred solar calendar meant to align humanity with God's cosmic order. This calendar, it claims, differs from the lunar calendar adopted by many cultures, which leads to a misalignment with God's true plan. If you're ready to uncover these mysteries, stay with us as we embark on an extraordinary journey through the Book of Jubilees. The Book of Jubilees opens by revisiting the creation story familiar to many from Genesis, but it brings unique details that broaden our understanding. According to Jubilees, when God created the world, He established a specific structure of time, known as sacred time. This goes beyond simply counting days and months. Sacred time is about aligning humanity's life with God's divine rhythm, a harmony that affects both physical and spiritual realms. In this ancient text, God's act of creation is presented not only as the formation of the universe, but also as the foundation of time itself. The Book of Jubilees describes the divine structure as a solar calendar composed of 364 days, precisely divided into 4 seasons of 91 days each. This perfect system ensures that holy days, like the Sabbath and festivals, consistently fall on the correct dates, preserving a cosmic balance intended by God. Why does the Book of Jubilees insist on a solar calendar? It claims that this structure is overseen by angels who regulate the universe's cycles. These angels, created by God on the very first day, are given roles to guide the sun, moon, and stars along their divine paths. Their duties maintain cosmic harmony, and this structure was designed for humanity to follow as well. According to Jubilees, failing to observe this solar calendar leads to spiritual disorder, causing humanity to drift from God's intended order. In contrast, the more commonly used lunar calendar is seen by Jubilees as problematic. It describes the lunar calendar as irregular, causing sacred dates to shift. This lack of consistency is viewed as a deviation from God's original plan, one that disrupts the alignment between humanity and the divine. The text suggests that, over time, people lost sight of this sacred calendar, which led them further away from God's perfect will. Intriguingly, this 364-day structure bears a resemblance to the Ethiopian calendar still used by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, hinting that traces of this ancient system may remain. Could the Ethiopian calendar be a rare modern reflection of this divine order described in Jubilees? As we continue, we'll explore how this structure of time extends beyond days and weeks, impacting major biblical events. The sacred solar calendar becomes more than a tool for measuring time. It's a call to live in alignment with God's order, a rhythm that keeps humanity connected to His will. In the following chapters, we'll delve into how the Book of Jubilees claims humanity is meant to live in harmony with this divine cycle, setting the stage for a life aligned with God's intentions. The Book of Jubilees brings forward a fascinating view of the role of angels in maintaining the universe's divine order. According to this ancient text, on the very first day of creation, God brought angels into existence, assigning them specific responsibilities that extend throughout all creation. These angels are not just messengers, but active agents in upholding the laws of the cosmos, ensuring that every element in the universe follows its intended path. In the Book of Jubilees, these angels are tasked with overseeing the sun, moon, and stars, guiding them to move in perfect harmony. This celestial arrangement is part of a divine system that regulates time and seasons, aligning with God's sacred solar calendar. The text emphasizes that these angelic beings play a crucial role in sustaining the balance of creation, a balance that extends to humanity when we observe God's ordained calendar and commandments. The narrative in Jubilees goes beyond describing angels as simple caretakers. It portrays them as protectors of divine order who actively work to prevent chaos. The text implies that when humanity strays from the sacred structure of time, disorder begins to spread. This spiritual disarray occurs because the calendar followed by most of the world today, primarily lunar, is considered by Jubilees to be out of sync with God's original plan. The angels, as guardians of cosmic time, oversee a solar calendar meant to keep humanity aligned with God's intentions. One of the most controversial aspects of the Book of Jubilees is its insistence that following the solar calendar is essential for spiritual harmony. The lunar calendar, widely used in ancient cultures including Israel, is seen by Jubilees as a deviation from the divine path, leading to spiritual dissonance. By using this lunar system, the text suggests that humanity fell out of step with the divine rhythm, disconnecting from the blessings intended by God's original structure. This depiction of angels as enforcers of cosmic order connects them directly to the sacred calendar. The Book of Jubilees reveals that these angels do more than observe. They actively engage in maintaining the divine pattern established by God, ensuring that all creation remains in alignment with His will. When humanity chooses to align itself with this structure, it brings life and spirituality back into harmony with God's cosmic design. As we continue, we'll look deeper into how Jubilees claims these angels not only guide the cosmos, but also act as intermediaries, delivering God's laws and commandments. Their role reminds us of a connection that bridges heaven and earth, a relationship we'll explore further in the divine commandments and the sacred laws they conveyed to humanity. The Book of Jubilees places great emphasis on the concept of a sacred calendar, rooted in God's laws and commandments, which it claims was intended to guide all of humanity. This calendar, overseen by angels, is not merely a method of timekeeping, but a divine structure intended to bring humanity into alignment with God's eternal order. According to Jubilees, adherence to this sacred calendar helps individuals live in harmony with God's will, as it designates specific days and seasons for worship, rest, and celebration. The text outlines a solar calendar of 364 days, divided into 4 perfect seasons of exactly 91 days each. This structure ensures that holy days, such as the Sabbath and various festivals, consistently fall on their intended dates each year. Jubilees asserts that this system was created by God to keep humanity's spiritual life in sync with the natural and divine rhythms of the cosmos. Deviating from this calendar, Jubilees warns, can lead to spiritual imbalance and a drifting away from God's guidance. In contrast, the Book of Jubilees critiques the lunar calendar that became widely adopted by many ancient cultures, including the Israelites. This lunar system, which causes sacred dates to shift year after year, is viewed as an irregular pattern that disrupts the connection between humanity and God's original design. The text argues that this deviation from the divine order can have profound consequences, as it removes people from the intended blessings and structure provided by the solar calendar. This insistence on a solar calendar speaks to a larger message within the Book of Jubilees. God's commandments are woven into the fabric of time itself. Observing the correct calendar is seen not just as an act of obedience, but as a commitment to living within God's divine plan. Each holy day and festival holds a cosmic significance, representing moments where heaven and earth are in perfect alignment, where humanity can experience closeness with the Creator. The calendar structure described in Jubilees also holds a mirror to the Ethiopian calendar used by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which still reflects a similar solar pattern. This correlation raises questions about whether remnants of this ancient system have survived into modern times, hinting at a continuity of sacred timekeeping. As we move forward, the Book of Jubilees will reveal how this divine calendar, when observed faithfully, becomes a means for humanity to maintain purity, respect sacred cycles, and ultimately live in a way that honors God's eternal laws. In the following chapters, we will see how this sacred time structure was embedded in the lives of the patriarchs, setting a standard for generations to come. In the Book of Jubilees, the Sabbath holds a unique and elevated position, portrayed as more than just a day of rest. According to this ancient text, the Sabbath was sanctified by God as an eternal commandment on the very day of creation, meant to be observed by both humans and angels alike. This day is described as the foundation of all time, a sacred interval set apart from the beginning of creation that reflects God's eternal rhythm. Jubilees emphasizes that the Sabbath is not only a commandment, but also a divine institution. It was established by God Himself as an eternal law, one that both the earthly and heavenly realms are called to observe. The text goes beyond what is described in Genesis, revealing that the Sabbath is a day deeply integrated into the structure of creation itself, a time of reflection, rest, and realignment with God's purpose. According to the Book of Jubilees, the observance of the Sabbath goes beyond the physical act of resting. It is intended as a day of spiritual renewal and communion with God. By observing the Sabbath, humanity aligns itself with God's own act of resting on the seventh day, symbolizing a return to the divine order from which all life flows. This day of rest is not just about physical relaxation. It is a sacred practice that allows individuals to participate in God's sanctification of time itself. The text also introduces the concept of Jubilee cycles, which are periods of 49 years, 7 cycles of 7 years. These cycles bring a larger structure of renewal, encouraging both the land and people to rest, heal, and realign with God's original intentions. In these cycles, the earth itself is given a Sabbath, a time to recover and be refreshed, symbolizing a restoration of the world to a state of purity and order. The Book of Jubilees presents the Sabbath and Jubilee cycles as vital to maintaining harmony within creation. Through these observances, humanity and the natural world are kept in sync with God's divine order. The Sabbath is portrayed not only as a commandment, but as an integral part of God's plan for the world, one that ensures spiritual and physical well-being. As we continue our journey through Jubilees, we'll explore how the text expands upon God's commandments, given to Adam and later to Noah, linking the Sabbath to a broader set of laws that govern human life. These commandments emphasize the importance of purity, family, and worship, showing that the divine laws given at creation are intended to guide humanity across generations. The Book of Jubilees introduces a powerful notion that God's commandments were given to humanity from the very beginning of creation, starting with Adam. According to this text, the commandments delivered to Adam encompass far more than what is traditionally understood, laying the foundation for a covenant of purity and worship that extends through all generations. These early laws are portrayed as a direct connection to God's will, a code of conduct that reflects the divine order itself. Jubilees reveals that upon Adam's creation, on the 6th day, God entrusted him with specific commandments which included observing the Sabbath, maintaining purity, and upholding moral standards in marriage and worship. These laws were not only given to Adam as an individual, but were intended as universal laws for all of humanity. The text emphasizes that these commandments were meant to be upheld by Adam's descendants, binding humanity to a covenant with God that is both spiritual and ethical. One notable detail in Jubilees is the idea that these commandments were conveyed by angels, illustrating a bridge between heaven and earth. Angels served as messengers, imparting divine knowledge and ensuring that God's laws were known and respected from the earliest days of creation. This angelic interaction underscores the sacred nature of the commandments, portraying them as part of a heavenly order rather than human-made laws. The Book of Jubilees places particular emphasis on the laws of purity, which were established as foundational principles for human conduct. According to the text, these laws were not merely ceremonial, but were essential for maintaining a holy relationship with God. Observing purity was seen as a way to honor God's creation, a reflection of the sanctity inherent in human life and relationships. This emphasis on purity extended to both physical and spiritual cleanliness, setting a standard for righteous living that was intended to guide humanity across generations. In Jubilees, the commandments given to Adam laid the groundwork for all future covenants between God and humanity. They represent the initial guidelines through which humanity could live in harmony with God's design. As we proceed through the narrative, we'll see how these commandments were further developed and reinforced in covenants with figures like Noah, Abraham, and Moses. Each covenant adds depth to these foundational laws, culminating in a comprehensive guide for a life aligned with God's will. In the following chapter, we'll explore the additional insights Jubilees provides on the story of Cain and Abel, expanding on Genesis with details about the spiritual consequences of Cain's actions and the righteous lineage that continued through Adam's descendants. In the Book of Jubilees, the story of Cain and Abel is given new depth and context, illustrating the profound spiritual implications of Cain's actions. While Genesis recounts the basics of Cain's jealousy and the tragic murder of his brother Abel, Jubilees delves further into the consequences of this first act of violence. It emphasizes how Cain's sin marked a serious breach in the divine order established by God, leading to a ripple effect that would influence generations to come. According to Jubilees, Cain's killing of Abel was not just a physical act of murder. It was a spiritual transgression that brought disorder and grief into creation. This first murder is described as a pivotal moment, an offense against both God's commandments and the sanctity of life itself. By taking Abel's life, Cain violated the fundamental principle of purity and reverence that had been given to humanity from the beginning. The text underscores that his actions were recorded on the heavenly tablets, marking Cain as the initiator of human transgression against the divine order. In addition to detailing the spiritual weight of Cain's sin, Jubilees highlights the role of Adam and Eve's third son, Seth, as a symbol of hope and righteousness. After the loss of Abel, Seth was born to continue the line of those devoted to God's commandments. Seth is portrayed as a figure of virtue who faithfully upholds the laws passed down from Adam, ensuring that the covenant of purity and righteousness remains intact. Through Seth, Jubilees introduces a lineage committed to preserving the divine covenant, countering the disruption caused by Cain's actions. Jubilees presents Seth's descendants as the foundation of humanity's righteous line, paving the way for figures like Noah, who would later play critical roles in restoring humanity's relationship with God. Seth's lineage is characterized by adherence to God's commandments, demonstrating a loyalty that sets them apart from those who strayed into idolatry and lawlessness. By upholding these principles, Seth's line is shown as the true continuation of God's covenant, preserving the purity and devotion intended from the beginning. This expanded narrative of Cain, Abel, and Seth reveals a greater cosmic struggle between righteousness and rebellion that resonates throughout Jubilees. The text emphasizes that each choice carries spiritual weight, and that adherence to God's laws is essential for maintaining harmony in creation. Through this lens, the story becomes more than a family conflict. It represents humanity's ongoing challenge to live in accordance with divine law. In the next chapter, we will examine Jubilees' account of Noah and the flood, where the text reveals further details about the corruption that led to the flood and the divine laws given to Noah as part of a renewed covenant with God. The Book of Jubilees provides a detailed account of the story of Noah and the flood, expanding upon Genesis by offering deeper insights into the events leading up to this divine intervention. According to Jubilees, the flood was not merely a reaction to human wickedness, but a necessary act of cleansing due to the severe corruption of the earth. This corruption, as the text describes, was largely driven by the Nephilim, the giants born from the union of fallen angels and human women. Jubilees explains that their lawlessness and rebellion against God introduced chaos into the world, creating a need for divine purification. Jubilees presents the flood as an act of God to restore order and re-establish harmony. It describes how the Nephilim disrupted the natural order, spreading forbidden knowledge and engaging in practices that defied the purity and commandments established by God. Their actions polluted not only humanity, but also the environment, leading to a moral decay that warranted a complete reset. In this way, the flood is portrayed as a divine intervention to realign creation with God's intentions and rid the world of forces that sought to disrupt his design. Following the flood, Jubilees details the covenant God made with Noah, which included specific commandments and laws designed to uphold purity and holiness. This covenant was not only a promise to never again destroy the world with a flood, but also an establishment of new laws for humanity to follow. Among these were guidelines for sacrifices, observance of the Sabbath, and laws concerning purity, commandments that would be foundational for the renewed relationship between God and humanity. The Book of Jubilees reveals that these commandments were not entirely new, but were part of a larger divine order known to previous generations, beginning with Adam. God reaffirmed these laws with Noah as a means to prevent the corruption that had led to the flood. Jubilees portrays this covenant as a restoration of the original divine order, with the intent to guide humanity back to a path of righteousness. By following these laws, humanity could maintain a holy relationship with God, respecting the sanctity of creation and avoiding the descent into chaos experienced before the flood. Additionally, Jubilees introduces the role of angels in delivering these commandments, further emphasizing the sacred nature of the covenant with Noah. Angels acted as intermediaries, reminding humanity that these laws were not mere human constructs, but were divine decrees integral to the cosmic order. This covenant with Noah is shown as a renewal of hope, ensuring that humanity would have the guidance needed to live in alignment with God's will. In the following chapter, we will explore how Jubilees delves into the story of Abraham, expanding upon his journey of faith and his resistance to idolatry, as well as the divine laws he received and faithfully observed. In the Book of Jubilees, the story of Abraham is expanded to reveal deeper insights into his journey of faith and his early defiance against idolatry. This text sheds light on aspects of Abraham's life that go beyond what is described in Genesis, showing him as a revolutionary figure who actively rejected the practices of his time. According to Jubilees, Abraham was born into a family deeply entrenched in idol worship. His father Terah worshipped false gods, surrounding their home with idols that represented the prevalent pagan culture. However, even as a young man, Abraham recognized the emptiness of these idols and began to question his family's beliefs. In one striking account, Jubilees describes a scene where Abraham, realizing the idol's lack of power, confronts his father, Terah, asking him, "My father, tell me, what are these idols that you worship?" Abraham's early questioning of his family's beliefs signifies his innate pursuit of truth, one that set him apart from those around him. In a dramatic act of defiance, Jubilees recounts how Abraham destroyed his father's idols, physically rejecting the false gods and fleeing into the wilderness to seek God. This act is portrayed as a bold stand against the idolatry that dominated his culture, establishing Abraham as a figure committed to following the true God, even at personal risk. This early rebellion foreshadowed Abraham's future role as the father of a chosen people, who would ultimately reject pagan practices and embrace God's commandments. Beyond his defiance of idolatry, Jubilees depicts Abraham as a man who followed divine laws long before they were formally given to Moses. According to this text, Abraham observed the Sabbath, made sacrifices, and adhered to purity laws that would later be codified in the Mosaic Law. These laws, Jubilees claims, were revealed to Abraham by angels, demonstrating that they were part of an eternal divine order, not merely guidelines established in later generations. By following these laws, Abraham was acting within a covenant relationship with God, one that connected him to the broader cosmic plan. This portrayal of Abraham as a man deeply devoted to God's commandments expands upon the traditional narrative, positioning him as more than just a figure of faith. He is presented as a faithful servant, adhering to a divine order that predated even his own life. Through Abraham, the Book of Jubilees emphasizes the continuity of God's laws, showing that they were intended to guide humanity from the earliest days of creation. In the next chapter, we will examine the significance of the covenant of circumcision, as detailed in Jubilees, which extends beyond a physical act to symbolize a spiritual alignment with God's cosmic laws, marking Abraham's descendants as part of God's eternal plan. The Book of Jubilees presents the covenant of circumcision as a deeply spiritual act that goes beyond a physical ritual. In Genesis, circumcision is introduced as a sign of the covenant between God and Abraham, marking his descendants as God's chosen people. However, Jubilees adds a cosmic dimension to this covenant, describing it as an eternal law inscribed on the heavenly tablets. According to this ancient text, circumcision was not merely a cultural practice introduced in Abraham's time, but part of a divine order that had existed since the creation of the world. Jubilees emphasizes that circumcision is a way for Abraham's descendants to align themselves with God's eternal plan. This act, it suggests, serves as a physical and spiritual commitment to uphold God's laws and follow his commandments. By participating in this covenant, Abraham's descendants are not only marking themselves as members of a chosen lineage, but are also embracing a responsibility to live according to the divine laws that govern the universe. Circumcision thus becomes a sacred act that connects each generation back to God's original intentions for humanity. In Jubilees, the act of circumcision is seen as an alignment with God's cosmic laws, a way for humanity to reflect the perfection and purity of God's order. The text states that this covenant was written on the heavenly tablets, underscoring its eternal and unchanging nature. By following this practice, Abraham and his descendants are stepping into a divine rhythm that binds them to God across all generations. Circumcision, in this context, is not just a personal commitment, but a way to participate in the grand cosmic design laid out by God himself. The Book of Jubilees also conveys that the covenant was observed by other heavenly beings. It describes angels as guardians of these laws, underscoring the sanctity of the covenant. Through this portrayal, Jubilees presents circumcision as an act that resonates beyond the physical realm, connecting humanity to the divine and spiritual realms. This reinforces the notion that God's laws are not limited to human traditions, but are eternal decrees upheld by both heaven and earth. Jubilees' interpretation of circumcision adds a layer of depth, making it a significant symbol of obedience and dedication to God's eternal order. It becomes more than a rite. It is a statement of faith that sets Abraham's descendants apart as those entrusted with a holy mission. As we progress, we will explore how this covenant paved the way for Abraham's descendants to fulfill their role in God's grand design, and how subsequent figures, such as Jacob, would carry on these divine commitments. In the following chapter, we will delve into the story of Abraham's test of faith with Isaac, revealing how Jubilees portrays this moment as part of a larger cosmic struggle and a testament to Abraham's unwavering devotion. In the Book of Jubilees, the story of Abraham's test of faith with his son Isaac takes on a new dimension, portraying it as not only a personal trial, but also as part of a larger cosmic struggle between forces of good and evil. While Genesis recounts the basic narrative of God asking Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, Jubilees adds complexity by introducing an antagonist, Mastema, often associated with Satan, who suggests this test to God, hoping that Abraham will fail. According to Jubilees, Mastema's role in the story represents the ongoing struggle between righteousness and rebellion. By challenging Abraham's faith, Mastema seeks to prove that even the most devout of God's followers can be led astray under extreme circumstances. This test becomes more than just a command from God. It transforms into a cosmic conflict, with Mastema's goal being to disrupt the line of God's chosen people by shaking Abraham's unwavering faith. This interpretation emphasizes that Abraham's faith was not merely a virtue, but a critical element in the battle between good and evil. As Abraham sets out to fulfill the command, Jubilees describes the intervention of angels sent by God to strengthen Abraham and remind him of the divine purpose behind his actions. These angels reassure Abraham of God's promises, reinforcing his resolve even as he faces the unimaginable. Just as he is about to sacrifice Isaac, an angel stops him, declaring that his faith has been proven and that he need not complete the act. This intervention marks a pivotal moment, symbolizing that Abraham's loyalty to God withstands even the most severe tests, and that faith can triumph over forces of doubt and fear. In Jubilees, the binding of Isaac is seen as more than a test of faith. It is portrayed as an affirmation of Abraham's role as the father of a chosen people who would follow God's laws, regardless of personal cost. By passing this test, Abraham solidifies his place in God's divine plan and reaffirms the covenant. His act of obedience becomes a foundation for the future, establishing a legacy of faith that will be carried by his descendants. Moreover, Jubilees underscores that the binding of Isaac was not solely a physical event, but a spiritual victory over Mastema and the forces that sought to lead humanity away from God's path. Through this trial, Abraham's faith emerges as a guiding light, demonstrating that true devotion can overcome any test. His actions not only safeguard his lineage, but also reinforce the cosmic order, affirming the unbreakable bond between God and his chosen people. As we move forward, we'll explore the lives of Abraham's descendants, particularly Jacob and Esau, and how their destinies were intertwined with the divine plan. In the next chapter, we will examine how Jubilees expands on their story, revealing the larger purpose and predestination at play in the lives of these two brothers. In the book of Jubilees, the story of Jacob and Esau unfolds with a strong emphasis on predestination, showing that their lives were woven into a larger divine plan long before they were born. According to Jubilees, God revealed to their mother, Rebekah, that her twin sons would lead two nations, but that the younger Jacob was destined to inherit the covenant and carry on the lineage of God's chosen people. This prophecy highlights that Jacob was selected by God from birth to continue the righteous line of Abraham and Isaac, while Esau was destined to take a different path. Jubilees underscores that Jacob's role in the divine plan was not a mere coincidence, but a predestined purpose. The text even suggests that both Isaac and Rebekah were given insight into Esau's rebellious nature and his future as the founder of a nation that would oppose Israel. This knowledge shaped their parenting, as they understood the significance of their sons' destinies in the unfolding story of God's people. Jacob, representing the path of righteousness, and Esau, embodying rebellion, became symbolic of the greater cosmic struggle between God's chosen line and the forces that resist divine order. The text also expands on Jacob's actions in securing the birthright and blessing from Esau, portraying them as part of fulfilling God's purpose. While Genesis often presents these actions as cunning or even deceptive, Jubilees casts them in a new light, suggesting that Jacob's actions were in alignment with his destined role. The birthright and blessing, critical elements in carrying on God's promises to Abraham and Isaac, were meant for Jacob all along, and his actions served as a means to fulfill that divine plan. Esau's impulsiveness and disregard for the birthright reinforce his role as one who stands outside God's chosen lineage. Jubilees also portrays Esau's later decisions as part of this predestined opposition. After losing his birthright and blessing, Esau establishes his own nation in the land of Seir, symbolizing his separation from the covenant line and his future enmity with Jacob's descendants. This separation goes beyond a sibling rivalry, embodying a broader spiritual conflict between those aligned with God's purposes and those who resist them. The text suggests that this hostility would endure for generations, culminating in the long-standing opposition between Israel and the nation descended from Esau. Through the story of Jacob and Esau, Jubilees highlights the concept of divine purpose and the idea that some destinies are set according to God's cosmic plan. Jacob's role as the custodian of the covenant is seen as part of this grand design, a calling he would fulfill by adhering to God's laws and guiding his descendants to do the same. In the next chapter, we will explore the blessing Jacob received from Isaac and how Jubilees portrays this moment as a confirmation of his role as the bearer of God's covenant, a position that carried a profound spiritual responsibility. In the book of Jubilees, the moment Jacob receives his father, Isaac's blessing, is portrayed as a pivotal confirmation of his role as the next bearer of God's covenant. This blessing is not just a family inheritance, it is a transfer of spiritual responsibility and a continuation of the divine laws established through Abraham and Isaac. In Jubilees, Jacob is given more than the promise of land and prosperity. He is entrusted with the divine commandments, a sacred duty to uphold and pass on God's laws. Jubilees emphasizes that the blessing Jacob received was accompanied by revelations from God and the angels, which included commandments meant to guide not only him, but also his descendants. This encounter was not merely a personal promise, but a reaffirmation of the covenant that binds his family to God's eternal plan. By inheriting these commandments, Jacob was called to a life of righteousness, dedicated to preserving the purity of the covenant line and living in alignment with the heavenly order inscribed on the heavenly tablets. The book of Jubilees goes beyond the Genesis account by emphasizing that the commandments Jacob received were part of a grand cosmic structure meant to be followed across generations. These divine laws included the observance of the Sabbath, rituals of purity, and adherence to a sacred calendar that was intended to keep God's people in harmony with his will. The text underscores that Jacob's responsibility was not only to honor these laws in his own life, but to ensure they would be upheld by his descendants, laying the groundwork for the future nation of Israel. In Jubilees, the blessing also serves as a divine charge, setting Jacob apart as a figure who would lead a chosen people dedicated to God's commandments. His life becomes a model of obedience, and his commitment to these laws symbolizes the covenant's endurance. The laws he receives act as a link between heaven and earth, reminding his descendants that they are part of a lineage set apart by God to uphold righteousness and to live according to the preordained cosmic order. This inheritance transforms Jacob's role from merely a family patriarch into a spiritual leader of a divine lineage. Through this blessing, he becomes responsible for guiding his descendants not just in faith, but in a way of life that preserves the divine commandments as a testament to God's eternal covenant. The text suggests that Jacob's commitment to these laws laid a foundation that would strengthen the future generations of Israel, anchoring them to the principles passed down through the patriarchs. In our final chapter, we will explore the significance of Jacob's 12 sons and the divine purpose of the 12 tribes of Israel, as presented in Jubilees, emphasizing how each tribe was destined to carry forward the sacred responsibilities inherited from their father, Jacob. In the book of Jubilees, the 12 sons of Jacob, each destined to become the heads of the 12 tribes of Israel, are portrayed as part of a predetermined cosmic order. This final chapter highlights the divine purpose that each tribe would carry, fulfilling the responsibilities and commandments passed down from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These tribes are not just inheritors of land, they are the bearers of God's laws, entrusted with upholding the covenant and acting as guardians of righteousness for future generations. According to Jubilees, the birth of each of Jacob's sons was divinely timed, recorded on the heavenly tablets to align with God's sacred calendar and cosmic plan. Each son represents a unique aspect of the covenant, and together they form a unified structure dedicated to preserving God's laws on earth. This alignment emphasizes that their roles were not random but orchestrated by divine design, positioning the tribes as stewards of God's commandments. They are depicted not only as founders of the nation of Israel, but as spiritual pillars who were chosen to protect and perpetuate the divine laws within their communities. Jubilees expands on the role of each tribe, suggesting that they would collectively uphold a society grounded in God's commandments. Each tribe, in its distinct way, contributed to the greater spiritual and moral framework of Israel, ensuring that the principles of righteousness were woven into every aspect of life. This responsibility went beyond religious observance. It encompassed governance, justice, and social harmony, illustrating the holistic nature of the covenant. The tribes were charged with creating a society that reflected the divine order set forth by God, serving as a testament to His presence among them. In Jubilees, the 12 tribes are also portrayed as carrying a prophetic mission that would endure through times of hardship and exile. Even as they faced challenges and temptations, they were reminded of their duty to remain faithful to the covenant. The text underscores that, as guardians of the divine commandments, the tribes were expected to stand resilient against any forces that sought to disrupt their alignment with God's will. Their role as custodians of God's laws would be a lasting legacy, a bond that held them to their forefathers' promises and kept them within the framework of God's grand design. This portrayal of the 12 tribes in Jubilees reaffirms the notion that God's plan is eternal and that His laws are meant to be preserved by His chosen people through every generation. Each tribe's identity is connected to a divine mandate, reminding them that they are part of a cosmic story that began with creation and continues through their descendants. As the Book of Jubilees closes, it leaves the message that the legacy of the covenant is both a privilege and a profound responsibility, one that the 12 tribes would carry forward as symbols of faith, obedience, and divine purpose. The Book of Jubilees concludes with a powerful reminder that the covenant between God and humanity is everlasting, extending beyond time and binding heaven and earth in a unified order. Through the 12 tribes, this sacred responsibility would continue, ensuring that God's commandments remain a guiding light for future generations, an eternal testimony of God's love and justice.